The ship was dying. Park Yuna could feel it in the way the floor shook beneath her feet, in the way the lights flickered like candles in a storm. Smoke filled the corridor, thick and black, and somewhere far away she could hear people screaming. She pressed herself against the wall and tried to think. The transport ship Wanderer had been traveling for 3 days through safe space. Safe. That word meant nothing now. The pirates had come out of nowhere, their weapons tearing through the hull like paper. Yuna had seen the Creth Dominion symbol on their ships, a black claw gripping a broken star. Everyone in the outer colonies knew that symbol. It meant death. Yuna was not a soldier. She was an aid worker, 34 years old, with tired eyes and calloused hands from years of building shelters and distributing food to refugees. She had joined this transport because it carried families fleeing the border wars. Mothers with children. Old people who had lost everything. She was supposed to help them start new lives on the colony world of Haven. Now Haven seemed very far away. She moved through the smoke, covering her mouth with her sleeve. Her breath mask hung around her neck, half its air already used. She had to find the evacuation pods. She had to find anyone who was still alive. The explosion shook the ship, and Yuna fell hard against the doorway. Pain shot through her shoulder, but she forced herself up. Through the haze, she saw bodies on the floor. She recognized some of them, a young mother who had shown her pictures of her daughter, an old man who had shared his food with the children. They were not moving. Yuna wanted to stop. She wanted to close her eyes and pretend this was not happening. But she kept walking, one foot in front of the other. That was all she knew how to do. She turned a corner and heard a sound that made her freeze. It was small and weak, like a wounded animal. Yuna followed it to a pile of broken metal and sparking wires. She knelt down and looked underneath. 2 large eyes stared back at her. It was a Loreth cub. The species looked like small bears covered in soft gray fur, with faces that seemed almost human in their expressions. This one could not have been more than 4 or 5 years old in human terms. Its fur was matted with blood, and it was shaking so hard that Yuna could hear its teeth clicking together. Behind the cub, Yuna saw another body, a female Loreth, her arms still reaching toward where the child had hidden. The mother. She had died trying to protect her baby. Yuna felt something break inside her chest. Not fear, not even sadness. Something deeper. Something that burned. She reached under the wreckage and pulled the cub out. It made a sound, half cry, half whimper, and tried to push away from her. But Yuna held it close, pressing its small body against her chest. "I have you," she said. Her voice was rough from the smoke. "I have you. You are safe." The cub did not understand her words. Loreth spoke their own language, and this child was too young to know the common tongue. But it seemed to understand her tone, because slowly, very slowly, it stopped fighting. Its small hands grabbed her shirt and held on tight. Yuna stood up. The ship groaned around her, metal twisting and breaking. She could feel the heat growing stronger. The fire was spreading. She started walking again, but she only made it a few steps before she heard voices. Rough voices, speaking in the harsh language of the Creth. Pirates. They were coming down the corridor, checking bodies, taking anything valuable. Yuna looked around. There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. She saw a small storage alcove, half hidden behind a fallen beam. She squeezed into it, pressing herself into the shadows, and pulled the cub tight against her body. She put her hand over its mouth, gently, and prayed that it would stay quiet. The pirates passed by. She could see their boots through a gap in the debris, heavy, black, splashed with blood. They were laughing. One of them kicked the body and said something that made the others laugh harder. Yuna closed her eyes and did not move. She did not breathe. After what felt like hours, The boots moved away. The voices faded. Yuna let out a shaky breath. The cub looked up at her, its huge eyes wet with tears. She tried to smile, but her face would not cooperate. She had to move. She had to find a way out. But when she tried to stand, she realized something was wrong. The smoke was too thick now. She could barely see. And when she breathed, it felt like swallowing fire. She looked at her breath mask. There was not much air left. Maybe 5 minutes. Maybe less. She looked at the cub. The child was coughing, its small body shaking with each breath. It would not survive the smoke. It was too small, too weak. Yuna did not think. She did not weigh options or calculate chances. She simply took the mask from her neck and placed it over the cub's face. The child blinked at her in confusion, but the clean air seemed to calm it. Its breathing steadied. Yuna smiled. A real smile this time. She started crawling toward where she thought the escape pods might be. Every breath was agony. The smoke filled her lungs, thick and poisonous. Her vision began to blur at the edges. Her arms felt heavy, like they were made of stone. She made it maybe 20 meters before her body gave out. She collapsed against a wall. The cub still clutched to her chest. She could feel its heartbeat fast and scared, pressing against her own slowing pulse. "It is okay," she whispered, though she knew the child could not understand. "Someone will find you. Someone will come." She did not know if that was true, but she wanted to believe it. Her eyes grew heavy. The world became soft and gray, like a dream fading at the edges. She thought about her mother, who had died when Yuna was young. She thought about the children she had helped over the years, the family she had fed, the shelters she had built. She thought about how strange it was that she would die here, on a burning ship in the middle of nowhere, holding a child that was not even her own species. But it did not feel strange. It felt right. Her last breath left her body. Her heart, tired and smoke-damaged, beat once more and then went still. Park Yuna died with her arms wrapped around a stranger's child, her body curled like a shield, her face peaceful in the dancing light of distant fires. And somewhere, in a place beyond space and time, something ancient opened its eyes. It had been watching for a very long time. It had seen empires rise and fall, stars born and die, species climb from mud to the heavens and back to dust again. But this small moment, this quiet sacrifice made it pause, made it wonder, made it decide. The universe held its breath, and a dead woman's story was only beginning. There was no light, no sound, no feeling. Yuna floated in a space that was not a space, a darkness that was not dark. She had no body, no weight, no breath. She was just a thought, drifting in an endless nothing dot. Am I dead? She wondered. Is this what death is? She waited for something to happen, for heaven or hell or simply an end. But nothing came. Time passed, or maybe it did not. In this place, such things had no meaning. Then she heard voices. They were not human voices. They were not any kind of voice she had ever heard. They sounded like music and thunder, and the whisper of wind through ancient trees, all at once. They spoke in words that she could not understand but somehow knew. They were talking about her. She is insignificant. A brief spark in a young species. All sparks are brief. That does not make them meaningless. Her kind is violent. They kill each other over land and ideas and the color of their skin. They are children playing with fire. Yes. And yet this one chose to die for a child that was not her own, not her species, not her blood. She gained nothing. She simply could not let the little one die alone. There was a long silence. Yuna felt something looking at her, not with eyes, but with attention so vast that she felt like an ant beneath a mountain. It has been long since we have seen such a thing. Too long. What would you have us do? I would have us remember why we began this work. We see life across the cosmos. We watch civilizations grow. But we have forgotten what we are looking for. And what is that? This. Exactly this. A soul that loves without reason. That protects without reward. That dies for a stranger's child and calls it right. Another silence. Una wanted to speak, to ask what they were, to beg for answers. But she had no mouth, no voice. Very well. We will give her a choice. Suddenly, Una felt herself pulled in a direction that had no name. Light exploded around her, not the gentle light of a sun, but something older and wilder. Like the first fire at the birth of the universe. And then she was standing somewhere. It was a room that was not a room. The walls were made of stars, and the floor was a mirror that reflected infinity. Before her stood 3 figures. They looked human, but Una knew they were not. They were wearing human shapes the way a person might wear a coat, something borrowed, something temporary. "Park Una," one of them said. Its voice was gentle, like a parent speaking to a child. "Do you know what you did?" Una opened her mouth. She had a body again, she realized. She could feel her heart beating, her lungs filling with air that tasted like nothing she had ever breathed. I tried to save the child," she said. "You did save the child. Your body shielded it from the heat. Your mask gave it air. When the rescue ships came, the cub was alive. Because of you." Tears filled Una's eyes. She had not known. She had died thinking she had failed. The child lives? The child lives. And now you must choose. The second figure stepped forward. It was taller than the first, and its eyes were like black holes, endless and hungry. "You can rest," it said. "Your story can end here. You have earned peace. No one would blame you for taking it." Una looked down at her hands. They were the same hands she had always had, small, rough, scarred from work. The hands of a nobody. An aid worker. A woman who had never done anything important. "What is the other choice?" she asked. The third figure smiled. It was a strange smile, full of something that might have been hope. "You can go back, but not as you were. We can remake you. Park Una. We can give you strength that your kind has never known. Speed, healing, a connection to the force that holds the universe together. You would be something new. Something the galaxy has not seen in 1,000,000 years. Why?" Una whispered. "Why me? I am no one." "That is exactly why," the first figure said. "The powerful always think they deserve more power. They take it and use it to make themselves greater. But you use your last breath for a stranger's baby. You had nothing, and you gave everything. That is rare. That is precious. That is what we have been waiting to find." Una was quiet for a long moment. She thought about her life. The shelters she had built. The children she had fed. The small kindnesses that had never seemed like enough. She thought about the cub's eyes, wide with fear, staring up at her in the smoke. "If I go back," she said slowly, "what am I supposed to do?" "Whatever you want," the third figure said. "We do not give orders. We do not demand service. The power is yours. The choice is yours. You can hide on some quiet world and live forever in peace. Or you can use what we give you to protect those who cannot protect themselves. We only ask one thing," the second figure added. "Remember what you felt when you held that child. Remember why you chose to die. Do not let power make you forget." Una closed her eyes. She thought about the pirates laughing as they kicked the bodies. She thought about the mother Lorith, dead with her arms still reaching for her baby. She thought about all the refugees on that ship, all the families who had just wanted to find a safe place to live. She opened her eyes. "Send me back," she said. The three figures looked at each other. Something passed between them. Agreement, approval, perhaps even joy. Very well. The room began to dissolve. The star walls melted into light. Yuna felt herself falling, but not outward, in every direction at once. One more thing, the first figure's voice said, growing distant. The child will need you. She is alone in the universe now. An orphan, like so many others. I will find her, Yuna said. I promise. And then everything went white. She woke on a moon dot. It was small and gray, with no air and no life. But somehow she was breathing. Somehow she was warm. She sat up and looked around, and her mind struggled to understand what she was seeing. The sky was full of stars, more stars than she had ever seen. A river of light stretching from horizon to horizon. The ground beneath her was soft dust that glowed faintly silver in the starlight. And beside her, sleeping peacefully in a small hollow in the dust, was the Larth cub. Yuna reached out with a trembling hand and touched its fur. It was warm, alive. Its chest rose and fell with steady breaths. She looked at her own hands and gasped. They were glowing. Faint lines of light ran beneath her skin, pulsing gently with her heartbeat. She could feel something inside her, a power, a presence, like a second heart beating alongside her first. She stood up. Her body felt strange, strong, light, like she could run forever, like she could tear through steel, like she could catch bullets in her fingers. What did you do to me? She whispered to the empty sky. There was no answer. Only silence and the cold light of a billion distant suns. The cub stirred and opened its eyes. It saw Yuna and made a small sound, not fear this time, but recognition. It reached up with its tiny hands, and Yuna lifted it into her arms. I am here, she said softly. I am not going anywhere. The cub pressed its face against her chest and sighed. In moments, it was asleep again. Yuna stood on that empty moon, holding a child that was not her species, wearing a body that was no longer quite human. She did not know where she was. She did not know what she had become. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would never let anyone hurt this child again, whatever it took. Whatever it cost, she would protect the helpless. She would find the lost. She would stand between the innocent and those who would do them harm. The galaxy did not know it yet, but something new had been born on that quiet moon. Something dangerous, and something kind. 6 months had passed since Yuna woke on that empty moon. She had learned many things in those months. She learned that she no longer needed to sleep, though she sometimes chose to rest beside Bora, the name she had given the cub, a word that meant purple in her mother's language. She learned that her body could heal from wounds that would kill any normal human, that she could move faster than the eye could follow, that she could feel the energy that connected all things and bend it to her will. She learned that the galaxy was cruel to those who could not protect themselves. The fringe sectors were the lawless edges of civilized space. Here, there were no governments, no police, no justice. Only the strong survived. The weak were prey. Yuna had seen things that made her sick. Slave markets where children were sold like animals. Mining colonies where workers were worked to death and their bodies dumped in pits. Pirate kingdoms built on the bones of the innocent. She could have looked away. She could have taken Bora to some quiet world and hidden from the darkness. The power the architects had given her did not come with commands. She was free to do nothing. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw the mother Larth, dead on the floor of a burning ship, her arms reaching for her baby. She could not do nothing. The first time Yuna saved someone, it was an accident. She and Bora had stopped at a small station to buy supplies. While she was paying the merchant, she heard screaming from a nearby alley. Without thinking, she ran toward the sound. 3 men were dragging a young girl toward a waiting ship. The girl was fighting, crying, begging them to let her go. The men were laughing. Yuna did not remember moving. One moment she was at the mouth of the alley. The next, she was standing over 3 unconscious bodies, her fists aching. The girl staring at her with wide, terrified eyes. "Run," Yuna said. "Go home. Do not look back." The girl ran. Yuna stood there for a long moment, looking at what she had done. The men were alive, but broken bones shattered, faces bloody. She had held back, she realized. If she had used her full strength, they would be dead. She did not feel sorry for them, but she felt something else. A strange, cold certainty. This was what she was meant to do. After that, the stories began to spread. Slavers on the station of Car 7 woke one morning to find their prisoners free and their ships disabled. The guards were alive, but tied up with their own chains, left in the cells where they had kept their victims. A pirate fleet in the Broken Nebula attacked a refugee convoy. Before they could board, a single figure appeared on their command ship. 20 minutes later, the entire fleet was drifting dead in space, every weapon destroyed, every pirate locked in escape pods with enough air to survive until rescue came. A warlord named Threk the Bloody had built an empire on the backs of child soldiers. He trained them, drugged them, sent them to die in his endless wars. One night, his fortress burned. His army found him the next morning, alive but broken, his spine shattered, his voice gone. The children were nowhere to be found. People gave her many names: the Ghost, the Shadow, the Angel of the Fringe. But the name that stuck was simpler. The children she saved, the family she protected, they called her the Mother Wolf. Bora grew quickly. Loreth's children matured faster than human children, and within 6 months, she could walk and talk and understand most of what Yuna said. She was curious and brave, always asking questions, always wanting to explore. "Why do you fight?" Bora asked one night, as they sat on the roof of a safe house on some forgotten moon. Yuna was quiet for a moment. Below them, in the building's basement, a dozen rescued children were sleeping victims of a trafficking ring that no longer existed. "Because someone has to," she said finally. "But you could die." Yuna smiled and pulled Bora close. "I already died once. It was not so bad." Bora did not understand the joke. She was too young to know the full story of how they had come together. Yuna had decided to wait until she was older to explain. "I do not want you to die again," Bora said seriously. "I will try not to," Yuna promised. But in truth, she did not know if she could die. She had tested her limits many times. She had been shot, stabbed, burned. Every wound healed within minutes. Every injury faded like it had never been. She was not sure she was still human. Some nights, when Bora was asleep, Yuna would look at her hands in wonder. The lines of light still glowed beneath her skin, pulsing with a power she did not fully understand. She could feel the pulse, that was what the architects had called it, flowing through everything around her. She could reach out and touch it, shape it, use it, but she did not know what she was becoming. The Kreth Dominion heard the stories, of course. They had spies everywhere. Their intelligence officers collected reports of the Mother Wolf and her impossible abilities. Most of the Dominion's leadership laughed it off. Fairy tales, propaganda, some refugee's fever dream. But one commander did not laugh. His name was Admiral Vaughn, and he was old enough to remember the last time someone like Yuna had appeared. 70 years ago, before the Dominion's rise to power, there had been another blessed being, a warrior who had nearly destroyed the Kreth's ancestors. It had taken an alliance of a dozen species to bring him down. Vaughn read the reports carefully. The speed, the strength, the way she could disable ships with a touch, the way no weapons seemed to hurt her. This was not a fairy tale. This was a threat. He sent a message to the High Command. The Mother Wolf is real. We must take action before she grows stronger. The response came back within hours. Find her. Kill her. Whatever it takes. Varn smiled grimly. He had hoped they would say that. Meanwhile, on a small station at the edge of Crest Space, Una was preparing to raid a slave convoy. She had been tracking it for weeks. 5 ships carrying over 2,000 prisoners, mostly women and children, destined for the Dominion's labor camps. Mora was safe with Oz, a family of refugees Una had rescued months ago. The mother, a human woman named Kim Ji-won, had insisted on helping however she could. Watching Bora was her way of paying back a debt that Una had never asked for. Una stood on the observation deck, watching the convoy approach. Her body hummed with power. Her heart was steady. She thought about the pirates on the Wanderer, laughing as they walked past her body. She thought about the Creth symbol, the black claw gripping a broken star. She had not forgotten. A message had been left at every site of her interventions. Not her name, not a threat, just words burned into walls and scratched into metal. I remember your ship. The Dominion would learn what those words meant. Not today, perhaps. Not tomorrow. But soon. Una stepped forward and let herself fall into the void. The stars wheeled around her. The convoy grew larger in her vision. The Mother Wolf was hunting again. The Galactic Accord met in an ancient space station that floated between 3 great powers. Here, ambassadors from 100 worlds debated treaties and trade agreements. Here, wars were ended with words instead of weapons. Today, the Creth Dominion had come to beg. Ambassador Gress stood before the council, his gray scales catching the light. He was nervous, though he tried not to show it. The Dominion had never asked for help before. They were conquerors, proud and fierce. But the Mother Wolf had changed everything. She is a terrorist, Greth said, his voice echoing through the chamber. A murderer. A threat to stability across the fringe sectors. In the past year, she has destroyed over 40 Dominion vessels. She has killed hundreds of our soldiers. She has freed prisoners who were lawfully captured under Dominion law. A murmur ran through the council. Representatives exchanged glances. The human ambassador, a tired-looking woman named Choi Hai-jin, leaned forward. Lawfully captured? My records show those prisoners were civilians taken from neutral worlds. Children, ambassador. Sold into forced labor. An internal matter, Greth said quickly. Not the concern of this council. What concerns us all is this. The Mother Wolf is human. Enhanced, yes, but human at her core. Earth must take responsibility for its citizen. More murmurs. Ambassador Choi's face tightened, but she said nothing. The council debated for hours. In the end, they reached a compromise. They would not declare the Mother Wolf an enemy of the Accord, but they would send an investigator. Someone neutral, someone skilled, someone who could determine the truth of what was happening in the fringe. They chose Kang Do-won. Do-won was 43 years old, with gray streaks in his black hair and eyes that had seen too much. He had spent 20 years hunting dangerous individuals for Accord intelligence, terrorists, war criminals, enhanced soldiers gone rogue. He was methodical, patient, and utterly without illusions. He did not believe in ghosts. He did not believe in angels. He believed in evidence. His investigation began on Car 7, where the first confirmed Mother Wolf incident had occurred. He interviewed survivors, examined the scene, collected data from security systems that had survived the attack. What he found surprised him. The slavers had been disabled with precise, controlled force. Broken bones, yes, but no deaths. The prisoners had been freed and given enough supplies to reach safety. The ships had been disabled but not destroyed, their life Support systems carefully preserved. This was not the work of a terrorist. This was the work of someone who was trying very hard not to kill. Dewan continued his investigation. He traveled from station to station, world to world, following the trail of the mother wolf. At every site, he found the same pattern. Violence, yes. Destruction, certainly. But always aimed at those who preyed on the innocent. Always controlled. Always leaving the victims alive when possible. The evidence did not match the Dominion story. In the criminal underworld, Dewan found people who were terrified of the mother wolf. Slavers, pirates, traffickers, they spoke of her in whispers. But among the refugees, among the survivors of her interventions, he found something different. They loved her. An old woman on station praxis grabbed his arm and wept as she told him how the mother wolf had saved her grandchildren from a trafficking ship. A young man with burned scars showed Dewan the mark left by Dominion soldiers, then showed him his freedom, given by a woman who had appeared from nowhere and asked nothing in return. She is not a monster, the young man said. She is the only good thing that has ever happened to us. Dewan's report to the Accord was supposed to be simple. Find the target. Assess the threat. Recommend action. But the more he learned, the less certain he became. He tracked her for 3 months. Every time he thought he was close, she slipped away. She knew she was being followed, he realized. She was testing him, watching to see what he would do. Finally, on a forgotten station in the outer fringe, he found her. The station was a refugee camp, thousands of displaced people crammed into rusting corridors, surviving on recycled air and hope. Dewan had followed reports of the mother wolf sightings here, expecting to find a fortress, guards, weapons. Instead, he found a classroom. Yuna was sitting on the floor, surrounded by children of a dozen different species. She was teaching them to read. On her lap sat a Lorith child, maybe 2 years old in human terms, with gray fur and enormous eyes. Dewan stood in the doorway, his hand on his weapon, and did not know what to do. Yuna looked up at him. Her eyes were calm, unsurprised. "You found me," she said. Her voice was soft, tired. "I wondered when you would." "I am Agent Kang Dewan of the Galactic Accord," he said, the words automatic. "I am here to arrest me? To kill me?" She smiled faintly. "You can try, but I think you already know how that would end." Dewan's hand tightened on his weapon, but he did not draw it. Something in her eyes stopped him. Not threat, not challenge, just sadness. "Why do you do this?" he asked. Yuna was quiet for a moment. The children had stopped their lesson, watching the stranger with curiosity and fear. "Go play," Yuna told them gently. "I need to talk to this man." The children scattered. The Lorith cub stayed on her lap, watching Dewan with suspicious eyes. "Her name is Bora," Yuna said, stroking the cub's fur. "I died holding her." "Did they tell you that part of the story?" Dewan shook his head slowly. So Yuna told him. She told him about the transport ship, about the pirates, about the smoke and the fire and the tiny body trembling against her chest. She told him about dying with her arms wrapped around a stranger's child, about waking on an empty moon with power she never asked for, about the choice she had made. "I could have done nothing," she said. "I could have hidden. But every time I close my eyes, I see them. The children in the cages, the families torn apart, the bodies in the corridors. I cannot do nothing. Not anymore." Dewan was silent for a long time. His training told him to be suspicious, to look for the lie, the angle, the hidden truth. But his instincts told him something else. She was not lying. She was exactly what she appeared to be. "The Dominion wants you dead," he said finally. "I know. The Accord wants me to neutralize you. I know that too. What do you expect me to do?" Yuna met his eyes. Whatever you think is right. I will not stop you. I will not fight you. But I will not stop what I am doing, either. There are too many children in cages. Too many families being torn apart. Someone has to stand between them and the darkness. Do-hwan stood there for a long moment. He thought about his career, his duty, his orders. He thought about the reports he had read, the survivors he had interviewed, the evidence he had collected. He thought about his own daughter, safe on Earth, and what he would want someone to do if she were ever in danger. Finally, he holstered his weapon. "Show me," he said. "Show me what they are really doing out here. Show me what you have seen." Yuna's eyes widened. "You would help me?" "I am an investigator," Do-hwan said. "I follow the truth. If the truth leads me to help you, then that is what I will do." For the first time since he had arrived, Yuna smiled. It transformed her face, made her look younger, more human. "Thank you," she said. Do-hwan shook his head. "Do not thank me yet. This will not be easy. The Dominion will not stop hunting you. I know." Yuna stood, lifting Bora onto her hip. "But now I will not be alone." Do-hwan contacted his superiors that night. His report was brief. Target not located. Trail went cold. Continuing investigation. Then he turned off his communicator and turned to face Yuna. "Where do we start?" he asked. Yuna's eyes were bright with something that might have been hope. "I have been collecting evidence," she said. "Slave manifests. Transaction records. Proof of what the Dominion has been doing. But I cannot expose it alone. I need help." Do-hwan nodded slowly. "Tell me everything." And so began a partnership that would shake the foundations of the galaxy. The broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy. On the throne world of the Kreth Dominion, High Warlord Grenth was eating his morning meal when the screens flickered and changed. On Earth, billions of humans stopped what they were doing and stared at their devices. On 1,000 stations and 100 worlds, people watched in silence as the truth was finally revealed. Slave manifests. Transaction records. Video footage of children being torn from their parents' arms. Audio recordings of Dominion officers discussing quotas and prices. Evidence so clear, so damning, that no one could look away. And at the end of the broadcast, a single message appeared. "My name is Park Yuna. I died holding a child. I was given a second chance. This is what I found." The galaxy erupted. The Galactic Accord demanded immediate answers. The Dominion's allies began to distance themselves. Protests broke out on neutral worlds. For the first time in their history, the Kreth found themselves alone. But Grenth did not panic. He did not surrender. Instead, he activated his final weapon. It was called the Sunbreaker, an ancient device from a civilization that had died long before humans left their planet. The Dominion had found it in the ruins of a dead world and spent decades learning to use it. With a single command, it could destroy an entire planet. Grenth pointed it at Haven. Haven was where Yuna had placed the children she had rescued over the past 2 years. Thousands of orphans, survivors, refugees all gathered in what was supposed to be a place of safety. Now they were hostages. "I will give you 1 hour," Grenth broadcast to the galaxy. "Bring me the Mother Wolf, or I will turn Haven to ash." Yuna heard the broadcast on a small ship racing toward Dominion space. Do-hwan was beside her, his face pale. "It is a trap," he said. "He knows you will come. He has been preparing for this. I know. If you go alone, you will die." Yuna turned to face him. Her eyes were calm, resolved. "I died once before," she said, "holding a child I had never met on a burning ship, surrounded by enemies. And I would do it again, 1,000 times, because that is who I am. That is who I chose to be." Do-hwan opened his mouth to argue, but the words would not come. He had seen her fight. He had seen what she could do. But he had also seen the Dominion's fortress, the weapons, the soldiers, the traps designed specifically to kill beings like her. "Let me help," he said finally. "Let us all help." "You have helped," Una said. "You got the evidence out. The galaxy knows the truth now. Whatever happens to me, that cannot be undone." She moved toward the airlock. Behind her, Bora was sleeping in a small room, unaware of what was happening. Una had said goodbye an hour ago, holding her adopted daughter close, memorizing the feeling of her small body, the sound of her breathing. "Tell her I love her," Una said without turning around. "Tell her I did not leave because I wanted to. Tell her I left because there were other children who needed me." Then she opened the airlock and stepped into space. She flew. The power of the architects burned through her, carrying her faster than any ship could travel. Stars blurred around her. Planets flashed past like fireflies. She crossed light years in moments, drawn by the pulse of the Sunbreaker, by the terrified heartbeats of the children on Haven. She burst into Dominion space like a meteor. The defense fleet opened fire immediately. Thousands of weapons, designed to kill enhanced beings, filled the void with destruction. Una flew through it like smoke through fingers. She did not stop. She did not slow. She reached the Sunbreaker. It was massive, weapon the size of a moon, bristling with spines and sensors and ancient machinery. At its heart, surrounded by the most elite soldiers the Dominion could gather, Grenth waited. He was not afraid. "I knew you would come," he said as Una tore through the outer defenses. "You are predictable, Mother Wolf. You cannot help yourself. Show you a child in danger, and you will walk into any trap." Una did not answer. She had no words left, only purpose. The battle was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Grenth had prepared well. He had weapons that disrupted the pulse, soldiers enhanced with stolen technology, traps that would kill any normal being 1,000 times over. The Sunbreaker itself was shielded by layers of defense that had stopped armadas. Una broke through them all, but it cost her. Every barrier drained her strength. Every weapon left marks that did not heal immediately. By the time she reached the central chamber, she was bleeding from a dozen wounds, her light flickering like a dying candle. Grenth stood before the control panel, his claw hovering over the firing sequence. "One step closer," he said, "and I destroy Haven. All those children, all those innocent lives, dead because of you." Una stopped. She could feel the Sunbreaker charging. She could feel the fear of the children across the void, their small hearts beating, their small lungs breathing, unaware that they were seconds from death. "Why?" she asked. Her voice was raw, broken. "Why do you hate them so much?" "They are just children." "They are resources," Grenth said. "Labor, soldiers, commodities. That is all any of them have ever been. The strong take what they want. The weak serve or die. That is the natural order." "No," Una said. "It is not." She thought about the mother Lorth, dying with her arms outstretched. She thought about the children she had saved, the families she had protected, the small moments of kindness that had made everything worthwhile. She thought about Bora, sleeping safely far away, dreaming innocent dreams. And she remembered what she had felt in that burning corridor 2 years ago, the moment when she had decided that a stranger's child was worth dying for. That feeling had never left her. It had only grown stronger. "You think power makes you strong," she said. "But real strength is not taking. Real strength is giving. Real strength is choosing to protect when you could destroy, to heal when you could hurt, to love when you could hate." Grenth laughed. "Foolish human sentimentality." "Maybe," Una said. "But it is why I will win." She moved. Grenth pressed the firing sequence. But Yuna was faster. She did not attack him. She threw herself at the control panel, pouring every last drop of her power into it. The energy of the architects, the force that had brought her back from death, surged through the ancient machinery. The Sunbreaker did not fire at Haven. It turned inward. The weapon screamed as it tore itself apart. Ancient systems overloaded. Power cores ruptured. The massive structure began to collapse, explosions racing through its corridors. Grant stared in disbelief. "What have you done?" "I saved them," Yuna whispered. "I saved them all." She was falling. Her power was gone, spent in that final surge. Her body was broken, barely holding together. But she was smiling. Grant raised his weapon to kill her. He never got the chance. Doan's ship burst through the collapsing structure, its weapons blazing. Behind it came others, refugees, survivors, people Yuna had saved over the past 2 years. They had come to help. They had come to fight. They had come to save the woman who had saved them. The battle was brief. Grant's forces, demoralized and leaderless, surrendered within hours. The High Warlord himself was captured alive, his empire crumbling around him. And Yuna, broken, dying, empty of power, was carried to safety in the arms of people who loved her. She woke 3 days later. The room was bright with sunlight. Real sunlight from a real sun. She was on Haven, she realized. The children's world. Bora was sitting beside her bed, her gray fur damp with tears. "You came back," the cub whispered. "You promised you would try not to die, and you came back." Yuna's body ached. Her power was gone, not forever. She could feel it slowly returning. But for now, she was simply human again. Weak, fragile, mortal, and happier than she had ever been. "I came back," she said, pulling Bora close. "I will always come back to you." Outside, she could hear children playing, laughing, living. The children she had saved, building new lives on a world that was finally safe. Do-Hwan visited later that day. He looked tired but peaceful. "The Dominion is finished," he said. "The Accord is moving in. There will be trials. Justice, finally, for what they did." Yuna nodded slowly. "And the children?" "Safe, all of them." Do-Hwan smiled. "Because of you." Yuna shook her head. "Because of all of us. I could not have done this alone." She looked out the window at the playing children, at the bright sky, at the future she had fought for. The galaxy would remember her by many names. The ghost, the angel, the mother wolf, the human who died for a stranger's child and came back as something more. But the children, the ones she had saved, the ones who were growing up free because of her, they called her something simpler. They called her Iyama, mother, and she answered, always. For the rest of her very long life, Park Yuna answered.